Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another review. Hopefully everybody's doing great. Now this one is something I've been really excited to do a review on. It was a while ago that I actually did a reaction on it, and I said in the reaction that Japanese are always have this ability to make horror in a way that is much better the way Americans, or if you want to call Hollywood, approach horror in their films or in their TV series. And overall, I'm gonna say I wasn't disappointed in this. There are a few nitpicks, small things that I do feel like really keeps this away from being the perfect horror show, but there is so many positives in the show that I do feel that it's actually one of the best horror shows that I've ever seen. Actually, horror in general, whether movie or a show. The first positive I'm going to say is that the way the horror is dealt with in this series, it's not just a typical horror. There are a few instances where those elements are present in a usual kind of a jump scare or so, but it's always done in a way that there are many aspects of horror at play. There's something always psychological, something's always either disturbing, and then the usual horror is always there as a centerpiece, but it's always blended in with the other elements. Also, there are many moments, the moments that usually are always relegated to something being just a jump scare or, oh, who's there, who's walking around the house. They dealt with those kind of situations in a very smart way, as in here you will see a lot of scenes where if there's a character, there's other stuff happening around, and the horror comes from that. You're always wondering what's gonna happen next. So the most of the times the horror is always relegated to this one house. Yes, the story is changed a bit, but if you know anything about the Grudge series this far, it's this one house and it's something that happened in that house, and the horror and any elements of that are always relegated to this house. Another thing that I loved are all the different characters and how they're able to connect everything in a very seamless way. Now, there's a bit of a negative in there about all this, but let's just go through the positives first. But yes, the amount of characters there, they are somehow blending in very, very smart, and it has something to do with, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it has something to do with also time. Yes, I was actually very surprised by this one element. Towards the end, only basically in the last episode, I was able to understand what is actually going on, because there are times that things happen and it really, really confuses the hell out of you. What the hell is actually going on? It's very hard to understand, but towards the end, you kind of get the idea, and it has to do something with time, and I'm going to leave it there, and it's very smart, and I was actually surprised that they will actually play that element in this as a horror piece. They are able to, it's not 100%, but they are able to make time and horror blend in so it can be as effective it can be within the setting that they're trying to show you. The mystery itself has changed a bit. It's not the same girl, and forgive me, I've forgotten the name, because the only other time I've actually been interested in any of the Grudge series are the first and the second American versions, with Sarah Michelle Gellar, and the original Japanese, the first Grudge movie, the original, the classic. Other than that, I have not seen any of the recent stuff, even like the third sequel to the first two that was straight to a DVD, the American version, and then the recent Gen re-release. Did not care about those. So this actually surprised me also, that I was actually thinking that going in, this would be a prequel. That's what kind of the marketing and all over Google, if you searched, it always said prequel with the title. It actually is not. For me, what I think after watching this, I think this is a way to reboot the series. It doesn't say it's the reboot, but to me, the way they've changed the actual incident and some of the elements around it, it is a reboot. They don't say it, but I do feel it's 100% it's a reboot. The horror element throughout the episodes are very well done. The moments that are always shown to you, whether there's some disturbing stuff going on, oh yeah, horror stuff or psychological, it's always intriguing. You're always thinking, whether now you can say this is a negative or a positive, I'll leave it up to you, but I do think the show requires attention. So as I said, it's always makes you think. That's one of the aspects of the show I think it can go also like negative or positive some. This is a show you have to pay attention to it, like 100%. Your eyes need to be glued to the TV. It's not something you can just play in the back and you're on the phone, or it's just you're watching and you're not really caring. You're not going to understand it. It's very, very, it needs attention. It's very attentive to detail. There are a lot of details in the show. Every scene, everything they're talking about, it's all connected, and it needs attention. Basically, you need to be glued to the screen. So in a way that for some might be a bit of a negative, but I think it actually is interesting, because at least now you're giving attention to detail and you're actually caring about the source material. Because I know, as I said, in the recent times, Grudge, they just made into a cash grab, really, and it's really more towards the Americans, how Hollywood has been treating the Grudge series. It's more like, oh, it's the name, it's popular, let's do a bit of cash grab. Here they actually, stay true to what this series was at the start, so they went back to the roots. Now, the biggest negative that I have with this, as I said, it's also a positive, but it's another negative that I think the people will probably hate the most, is the amount of characters. Now, in the end, I am more on the positive side, but I do think certain characters maybe could have cut off and they could have found another way to connect things together. But there are times that, because of I forgot actually, there are time jumps. Like the series kind of go back and forth, or it seems like at times, and sometimes you don't really know what's going on with, and there are scenes where it will jump to another character that you have not seen yet, and there's no introduction. There is nothing. It doesn't say like who this is. It just puts them right into a situation, and now you're following this new character. So even towards the end, to the final scene, there are so many characters at play that it can get too much. There is one central character. I'm not going to say who, because that actually is a spoiler, but that character, it's the central character more towards the last two episodes, when things are finally not really trying to make sense, but at least they're finally starting to reveal a few things. Yeah, the characters can get it too much, and I can see some people just being like, what the hell is going on, because of like all these jumps in time back and forth, and because of all these characters at play. You can understand when an episode is like 30 to 40 minutes average, and there was only like six episodes in total. There's so much cram to it. So you can either say it's a positive because there's so much you can watch and so many things that are play, or you can say it's a negative because it's getting too much for your brain to comprehend. There are times the show really got me, and I was like, man, like you need to run. This show needs to get to where it wants to. And when it starts going, it ends. And I understand why they ended it that way. The ending, it really appears in a way, and then you're like, okay, something's about to happen, and then it ends, and the whole season ends, and you just sit there like, I need to know more. So all those negatives maybe combined together, I understand some people would be like, okay, this show doesn't give me like the 100% answers. It doesn't have a proper ending because it really stops at a point. I mean, not that a full scene ends. It literally stops at a point and you're like, what? So in that manner, I understand that how some people will be frustrated, but overall, I do think as a show, it did a lot of positives, and I do think it was able to do enough where it succeeded rather than failed. So overall, I'm gonna give this show a 9 out of 10. Although there are a few negatives, I don't think those negatives affect the show in a manner where it's a bad show. I do think this is if it's a reboot, they should actually call it a reboot, because this is what Grudge needed. It's been a while that the Grudge series itself has been interesting or had anything interesting to do with it. So I do think there's enough there, and there's enough disturbing stuff, horror stuff, and psychological stuff, and the way they are able to bring all these elements together, I think was very smart. Now, finally, I just want to say there is something to do with a baby. You will know when it's about to happen. It is very disturbing. I mean, extremely disturbing, and I think some people might think this is just too much at times, but in the setting of a show, I do think it was able to do a lot of positives with all the elements that the show presented. So yeah, go watch the show. I do think it's one of the best shows out there. Even if it's not perfect, I do think it's a really great way for Grudge to come back. And I gotta give Netflix the credit that they were able to, I know they're partnered with someone to actually make the show, but they were able to make something like this where movies all this time for the last 10 or 15 years were not able to do. So yeah, go watch the show. It's an amazing show. And with that, I want to say thank you for watching the review. Thanks for all the support. Please remember to share, subscribe, leave a like or dislike. Let me know in the comments if you loved the show or if you hated the show, and let me know what I'm doing right or wrong. And with that, I'm going to leave you. So take care, and I will catch you all later. Ta-ta.